today is the first week of the Pride Month. So this is our first ever live stream hosted by National Association of Asian American Professionals National Pride Program. So today we're gonna talk about our mission and introduce some background about the Pride Month, and also we'll have a briefly introduction section of the panelists. And David Moore from Kansas City will have a presentation to about the background of Stonewall uprising. So at the end, we'll also have like a panel session. We'll share our views and our ideas about modern day LGBTQ rights movement and what Pride means to us. But in the meantime, you can also send your questions to us through these three methods. Firstly, you can send your questions or your concerns or whatever you want to tell us via YouTube chat. We have Harris collect all your questions, and also you can email them to the pridetalk@naap.org, or also text your question to 419-777-4335. We will have a briefly around 10 minutes Q&A session and answer all the questions. So, NAAAP Pride is a new national program to empower, educate, engage, and celebrate the Asian American LGBTQ professional communities. So we wanted to provide a resource or like a platform about the Asian LGBTQ issues, and also give more ideas and more support to Asian people, especially students or professionals, to come out to be who they truly are in their working space, and also build this community for people to know each other and grow and build their professional career. So we're gonna have an introduction session about our Pride leaders from different chapters. Firstly, we have John from Kansas City.
Hi, everybody. Okay, so I know we're having audio issues right now. It seems like it's a little soft, and some of us are really soft and some of us are really loud. So we're working on it. So while I'm working on that, I am also going to tell you that I'm trying to really quickly solve all the audio issues that we're having. Okay, my mic is really loud, but everybody else seems to be soft. So I'm gonna see if I can fix that. That's what I'm gonna do. Okay, I'm gonna continue. I'm gonna hand that off to maybe to Kim, and see if Kim's audio is better. Go ahead, Kim. I'm gonna tell you a little bit more after I solve this issue.
Okay, we're gonna
Go
close
ahead,
the
Kim.
introduction, I think.
Yeah.
So Kim, we also have Kim Vale from my Miami chapter. Hello, Kim.
Hi everyone, this is Kim Lee from NAP Miami and also one of the leaders from NAP Pride. I'm very excited and happy to our first live event podcast. I will be leading the panel and talking about what is NAP Pride and what it means to each and every one of us on the leadership team. And hopefully you will get questions and you can interact with us later on. Welcome everyone.
Thank you, Kim. We also have David Moore from Kansas City.
Hello, everyone. This is David. I'm with NAP Kansas City. I'm the VP of Strategic Development for the chapter. I'm also one of the founding members of NAP Pride, and I will be doing a short presentation on the history of the LGBT movement. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, David. We also have
Thank you,
Harris.
David. We also have Harris Chow from NAP Boston.
Hi, I'm Harris. I'm from NAP Boston. I'm the Director for Professional Development at Boston. And for today's podcast, I'm going to be answering any questions. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, feel free to send them anonymously through our email at pridetalk@nap.org or text 419-777-4335 or talk to us through our YouTube live chat.
Thank you, Harris. And I'm Terry. I'm from NAP Cincinnati chapter. So next session.
To his presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Terry. And thank you all for joining us tonight for our first ever Pride Talk Live event. With this year being the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall uprising, we want to use this time tonight to really look back on the journey and acknowledge those that came before us and courageously led the way to equality for all. One of the most asked questions that we get when Pride Month comes around is, why do you need a gay Pride Month? You know, we don't have straight Pride Month. Why do you need a gay Pride Month? So we thought a good place to start is to kind of present a brief overview of the modern LGBTQ liberation movement in the context of Pride, and then we'll discuss what Pride means individually to each of us. The timeline that I'm going to be presenting here contains some, but nowhere near all of the pivotal events in the movement. And during this evening's presentation, we will highlight and honor the Stonewall Uprising by reviewing a bit of the history leading up to it, the Stonewall riots themselves, and the progress made after Stonewall, and then the work that still needs to be done because it's nowhere near over. And again, this is a very brief overview. There will be a lot of things for those that are more into the knowledge of LGBT community and the movement. There'll be a lot of things missing, but this is meant to be more of an overview. With Henry Gerber and the formation of the Society for Human Rights, because this is kind of known to be the first gay group in the United States. Being the first, it was also very short-lived. In July of 1925, the group was raided, and the headline in the Chicago Examiner at the time read, "Strange Sex Cult Exposed." So I just want everybody to take note of that phrase, strange sex cult, because words matter, and it also explains the need for us to have pride, that throughout history, these types of words have been used to define us, and we are trying to define ourselves and not let others define who we are. Part of our goal for tonight is also to shine a little light on some of the history that many may not be aware of. In telling our LGBT history, we sometimes forget to include those from communities of color, women, and our trans brothers and sisters. For one example, in 1925, blues singer Ma Rainey was arrested in her house in Harlem for having a, quote, lesbian party. Her protege, Bessie Smith, bailed her out of jail the following morning, and Rainey and Smith were part of an extensive circle of lesbian and bisexual African-American women in Harlem. 1950 saw the formation of the first long-lasting gay organization, the Mattachine Society. Communist and labor activist Harry Hay formed the group with a collection of male friends in Los Angeles to protect and improve the rights of gay men. In 1952, a declaration by the American Psychiatric Association declared homosexuality as a sociopathic personality disturbance. Again, words matter. You know, how does one navigate society with such a label? 1952 saw Christine Jorgensen, the first American who comes forward publicly about being transgender and speaks openly about her experiences with gender confirmation surgery and hormone replacement therapy. Her transition caused an international sensation, and for many, she is really the first visible transgender person in the media. In the previous slide, we saw the formation of the Mattachine Society in 1950. So 5 years later, in 1955, Dale Martin and Phyllis Lyon formed the Daughters of Bilitis in San Francisco. This group considered to be the first lesbian rights organization and is conceived as a social alternative to lesbian bars because those were considered illegal and subject to raids and police harassment. In 1956, African-American novelist and intellectual James Baldwin published his first novel, Giovanni's Room. This was critically acclaimed work that explores bisexuality and intimate relationships between men. In 1962, Illinois becomes the first state to decriminalize homosexual acts between two consenting adults. So here in all states except for Illinois, it was illegal to have sex with someone of the same gender. So not only were you considered a pervert or strange or weird, but you were also a criminal. So no wonder so many people stayed in the deepest closets. And again, I'm reminded of the question, tell me again, why do you need to have gay pride? Anyone heard of Bayard Rustin? A lot of people may know Martin Luther King Jr. Well, Bayard Rustin, an African-American gay man, was the chief organizer behind the historic March on Washington in 1963, which culminated with Dr. King's famous I Have a Dream speech. 1963 brought the first known gay rights demonstration in the U.S. It was at Whitehall Induction Center in New York, and it was protesting against discrimination in the military. And now we're up to 1966. So this is 3 years prior to Stonewall, and this is the Compton Cafeteria riot in San Francisco, where trans women were denied service and arrested for breaking gender clothing laws. So now we come up to 1969, the Stonewall uprising and what is considered to be the birth of the modern LGBTQ movement. And on the night of June 27, 1969, a police raid on the Stonewall Inn came to be known as the hairpin drop heard around the world. So what does that mean? Well, the first part of that hairpin drop is actually refers to a slang term for letting people know that you're gay through a subtle hint. And then the second part references a phrase from a poem by Ralph Waldo Emerson about the Battle of Lexington and Concord, where the poem reads, "Here once the embattled farmer stood and fired the shot heard round the world." So this was kind of seen as that shot heard around the world for the LGBT community. So what was it that happened on this otherwise typical summer night at this gay bar that is credited as being the catalyst to spark the gay revolution? So we need to kind of look at this. You know, some people call it a riot or an uprising. So what really was it? Is it a riot, uprising, a revolution? And to really understand what happened at this little dive bar in Greenwich Village, we kind of need to look at the elements that were kind of whirling around to create this kind of perfect storm. First of all, homosexuality was illegal. So, and the decades prior were very hostile to our community. Gay bars and clubs kind of served as that safe space for the community. Transgender and gender nonconforming folks flocked to the Stonewall as a place to live freely. They would often find the doors to both straight and gay bars closed to them. So Stonewall gave them and hundreds of homeless LGBTQ youth of New York a place to call home. This was where they found their tribe. And at the time, there were criminal statutes were being enforced targeting sodomy and cross-dressing. So that was kind of the environment that we were in at the time. And the Stonewall Inn was actually owned by mafia. Not only the Stonewall Inn, but many of the gay bars were owned by the mafia. Local New York City authorities had closed hundreds of these LGBT hotspots in the 30s and 40s. But even after prohibition was repealed, state agencies continued to prohibit serving queer folks under the premise of moral indecency. What this did is it forced the LGBTQ scene to kind of go underground, and then the mafia was running the gay bars and paying off local authorities. So the mafia would typically bribe cops not to harass their clientele and would often tip off the patrons whenever a raid was about to happen. But that did not happen on this night. And also during this time, the police were using harassment and excessive force. So in the months before the Stonewall riot, several gay bars and clubs in Greenwich Village were raided or closed. The relations between police and the LGBT community were hostile. And as the police continued to violently raid these clubs, the community grew weary, which kind of culminated at Stonewall on that night. Police officers entered the Stonewall Inn and violently assaulted the patrons. The police began arresting anyone not wearing at least 3 articles of what they considered, quote, gender-appropriate clothing. Outraged by this harassment by the police and fed up with a life relegated to the streets, the partygoers finally had enough and wanted to fight back and fight for their home, and they were fighting for their tribe. Part of the history that a lot of people don't know is that transgender women of color were really on the front lines of this. Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera witnessed the police raid and were among the first people to bravely fight back. Various accounts cite a scuffle involving a black butch lesbian named Stormy in handcuffs. She was a drag king at the Jewel Box Review, North America's first racially integrated drag review that regularly played at the Apollo in Harlem. And on that night, like all other nights, Stormy was in violation of the laws against cross-dressing. The story goes that she was being escorted into a police wagon but resisted arrest and repeatedly tried to escape before she was struck in the head with a police baton. She then punched the cop, and she started shouting to the bystanders, "Why don't you guys do something?" Then all hell broke loose. So for 5 days, the crossroads of 7th Avenue and Christopher Street served as a hub for the LGBT people to speak out against the harassment they were facing by police. This action, although it did not start the gay rights movement, it brought forth a new era of LGBTQ activism. So really what started as a riot of rebellion to protest exploitation and police harassment turned into an uprising over several nights, which then ignited a revolution. So 1 year later, in 1970, and the anniversary of the Stonewall riots, was what is known as the first Gay Pride March. It was called the Gay Liberation Day March. And then in 1973, the American Psychiatric Association finally removes homosexuality from its list of psychiatric disorders. 1974, we see Elaine Noble becoming the first openly gay person to be elected as a state legislator. She serves in the Massachusetts State House of Representatives for 2 terms. And in 1977, we come to Harvey Milk, who becomes the first openly gay person to be elected to public office in California when he wins a seat on the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. Harvey had pre-recorded a message after receiving several anti-gay death threats during his political career. And the message said, quote, "If a bullet should ever enter my brain, let that bullet shatter every closet door." And in 1978, after assuming his elected role as supervisor, Harvey Milk was assassinated along with San Francisco's Mayor Greg Moscone. Supervisor Dan White is convicted of voluntary manslaughter and is sentenced to 7 years in prison. And despite White's statements that he was on a mission and wanted to kill 4 of them, he was not found guilty of premeditating anything. White's lawyers claim that while usually a healthy man, White had been consuming many sugary foods, which led to his mental state, and this became known as the infamous Twinkie defense. Also in 1978 was the first rainbow flag, designed by openly gay man and drag queen Gilbert Baker. And Baker later revealed that he was urged by Harvey Milk to create a symbol of pride for our community. In 1979, we saw over 100,000 people participate in the National March on Washington for the lesbian and gay rights. This was also the year that chapters of the National Organization of PFLAG, Parents and Friends of Lesbian Gays, was founded across the U.S. 1980 saw David McReynolds appear on the Socialist Party ballot, becoming the first openly gay individual to run for president of the United States. And now, July 3rd, 1981, the New York Times reported a disturbing number of deaths attributed to a rare type of pneumonia and unusual cancer in young gay men. It was referred to as GRID, gay-related immune disorder. But when it was recognized that the virus is found in other populations, it is renamed AIDS, the acquired immune deficiency syndrome. At this time, Pat Buchanan used this opportunity to demonize gays and summon up Reagan conservative views by stating in 1983 that, quote, "The poor homosexuals, they have declared war on nature, and now nature is exacting an awful retribution." Again, words matter. 1986, Bauer versus Hardwick is the United States Supreme Court decision that upheld in a 5-4 ruling the constitutionality of a Georgia sodomy law. Chief Justice Warren E. Burger cited at that time ancient roots of prohibitions against homosexual sex, quoting William Blackstone's description of homosexual sex as, quote, "infamous crime against nature, worse than rape, and a crime not fit to be named." He concluded to hold that an act of homosexual sodomy is somehow protected as a fundamental right would be to be cast aside a millennia of moral teaching. This case was later overturned 17 years later in 2003 in the Lawrence versus Texas case. 1987 brought the formation of ACT UP, the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power, a direct action activist group founded in the LGBT Community Center in New York City to bring attention to age-related issues using civil disobedience. 1989, Denmark becomes the first country in the world to legally recognize same-sex unions. And in 1982, the World Health Organization removed homosexuality from its list of diseases. 1993, President Bill Clinton signed the policy known as Don't Ask, Don't Tell. This was meant to be a compromise between those who wanted to end the longstanding ban of homosexuals serving in the military and those who felt having openly gay troops would hurt morale and cause problems within the military ranks. Under this new policy, gay, lesbian, bisexual Americans could serve their country as long as they kept their identity under wraps, basically staying in the closet. After the policy was introduced in 1993, the military discharged over 13,000 troops under Don't Ask, Don't Tell. 1996, the United States Supreme Court ruled that Colorado's Second Amendment, which denied gays and lesbians protection against discrimination, is unconstitutional. It always seems like with one step forward, we kind of go two steps back. In the same year, we saw DOMA, the Defense of Marriage Act, which passed both houses of Congress by a large veto-proof majority and was signed into law by President Bill Clinton. By defining spouse and its related terms to signify a heterosexual couple and a recognized marriage, it codified non-recognition of same-sex marriage for all federal purposes, including insurance benefits, Social Security survivor benefits, immigration, bankruptcy, and the filing of joint tax returns. 1998, we saw very public coming out of Ellen and her television character, Ellen Morgan. Ellen becomes the first television show to feature a lesbian or gay lead character, one step forward and a step back. The show was canceled the following year. 1998 was also the year Matthew Shepard, a gay Wyoming college student who was brutally beaten by two young men, tied to a fence, and left overnight, and then he dies 6 days later. But in 1998 was the year that we saw Tammy Baldwin become the first openly lesbian candidate ever elected to Congress, winning Wisconsin's 2nd congressional district seat. In 2004, Massachusetts legalizes same-sex marriage, and New Jersey legalizes domestic partnerships. But again, moving forward, there are always steps back. 11 other states ban such legal recognitions. 2006 brought us the first openly transgender person to be elected to a state-level office when lawyer and transgender activist Kim Koko Iwamoto is elected to the state-level Board of Education in Hawaii. 2008, we saw the passing of Prop 8, the amendment banning same-sex marriage in California, and this inspired the creation of the No Hate campaign, a social project featuring celebrities who promote marriage equality. 2009, President Obama signs the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes and Prevention Act, also known as the Matthew Shepard Act. This law expands the 1969 U.S. federal hate crime law to include crimes motivated by a victim's actual or perceived sexual orientation, gender identity, or disability. And it becomes the first federal law to include legal protections for transgender people. 2011 saw President Obama end Don't Ask, Don't Tell. The Obama administration also states that they will no longer support the Defense of Marriage Act, which banned the recognition of same-sex marriage in the United States. In 2011, the United States Department of Education Secretary Arne Duncan issued a statement clarifying that students have the right to form gay-straight alliances. Under the Equal Access Act of 1984, in any public school that allows non-curricular student groups to form, schools must also provide GSAs with the same opportunities as other groups to convene and access resources. 2013, the U.S. federally recognizes same-sex marriages, extending federal benefits to couples in states that allow same-sex marriage. The Supreme Court strikes down the Defense of Marriage Act. And on the same day, the Supreme Court also ruled that California's Proposition 8 ban on same-sex marriage is unconstitutional, allowing California to become the 13th state where same-sex couples can marry. 2014 saw Laverne Cox become the first transgender woman to win an Emmy as an executive producer for Laverne Cox Presents The T Word, a documentary that aired on MTV. 2014, the Department of Education issued official guidance to clarify that transgender students are protected from discrimination under Title IX, a federal civil rights law that prohibits discrimination against students on the basis of sex, gender, and federally funded education programs and activities. And on July 26, 2015, the Supreme Court rules that states are constitutionally required to issue marriage license to same-sex couples, finally legalizing marriage equality in all 50 states. And so we kind of come full circle. In 2016, President Obama dedicates the new Stonewall National Monument in Greenwich Village in Lower Manhattan as the first U.S. national monument to honor the LGBT rights movement. So it's still not over. The uprising, in my opinion, still continues. There's so much that is going on with our current administration that they have cited against LGBTQ issues in so many areas, banning transgender troops from serving in the military, arguing in court that civil rights laws do not protect employees from discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity, and making it easier for adoption agencies to reject same-sex couples. So our struggle continues. The need for pride is real. What we just went through was just a very brief journey down the rainbow timeline, and there's so much more to this history. And we as NAAAP Pride, we will begin posting links to additional resources on our website. So please come back and check it on a regular basis. At this point, I'm going to hand it over to Kim from NAAP Miami, and she's going to kind of lead us through a discussion about what NAAP Pride means to us. And I thank you for listening to this presentation.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, David, for the brief yet very informative walkthrough memory lane on the journey of our community and to get to where we are today in 2019. But as he said, we still have a long ways to go to have true equality. And I think a good way that we can share with our community, with our allies, is to share our personal stories and see that the struggles that we go through in our lives, I think that could give us some connection that we're just people like you and me. So there'll be a couple of questions I'll be asking each individual leader, and we will go through all these. The first question I have will be for Harris from NAAP Boston. What is Pride and how is it different from Pride parades? Harris? I think Harris might be silent.
I can take it if you want. This is David.
Okay. Hey, David, go ahead.
All right. Well, for me, Pride parades were more about celebrating externally with the community and with at the time, the newfound tribe that I had found. It was a way for me to kind of be with my people after feeling so repressed for so many years and having to be so hidden. The parades gave me a place to really celebrate and to be with my people. And I call that my baby gay days, when I was first coming out and I was living in all kinds of rainbows. I had every rainbow t-shirt out there, the pink triangles on my car. I was wearing pride bracelets. So I think that there was a place for that. I still go to pride parades, but it's not that big for me right now. It's more important for me to do subtle things of pride. So for me, it's kind of like to be able to put a photo of my partner at my desk at work, to me is an act of pride, that to put that there and hopefully not have to worry about what others will think or worry about losing my job, or being able to feel comfortable to introduce my partner, or when the weekend is over and everybody in the office is talking about what did you do this weekend, that I can just feel comfortable saying what my partner and I did. To me, those are those little moments of pride.
Thank you, David. Harris, are you back on with us?
Let's see. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Hey,
Awesome.
welcome.
Hey, yeah. I'm sorry for that. Yeah, so for me, I totally agree with you, David. I think it means all of that and it means a little bit more. For me, I think of pride as being able to be all of yourself all of the time. It means that you don't really need to switch to a different personality or wear a different hat or a different mask from 9 to 5 because you feel the need to fit in. It doesn't mean that you need to switch into, a different personality or a different way of talking every time you talk to your parents or when you talk to your, quote unquote straight friends as a way to be accepted. Or even, as casual as walking to the supermarket when you talk to the cashier, it's as a way to avoid confrontation. It means also to me that you can really fall in love, that you do not need to choose between him or choose between your family. Love is supposed to be unconditional, and for me, pride meaning that you can choose both. You can choose him and you can choose your family. And it means that, so all in all, I think it means that you can be yourself wholly, authentically, unconditionally, simply because living a full life means you can't be anyone but yourself. And when I relate it to pride, I think pride, is a great way, or pride parades is a great way for us to start understanding that about our community from the outside looking in. But it's not okay to, have this be a culture for 1 month every year, or have this be a 1 day thing every month, or 1 day thing every year. It needs to be authentically your whole self all the time. And I know pride can mean different things for different people, but for us in our LGBT community, it really means being able to be accepted for our identity and to not live with conditions from our parents or from our friends that we need to be anyone different because of who we love.
Thank you, Harris. That was very heartfelt. Terry from NAAAP Cincinnati, would you like to share with us what does it mean for you to Pride and how is it different than Pride Parade?
Hello, everyone. This is Terry. Pride for me is that I can be myself and feel securely wherever I am and whenever I am. Because I had a long period of struggling of coming out to everyone or just like confidently be and comfortably be who I am all the time. So during the time in the closet, I always struggling of switching my personality, switching who I am in different situation, and make up different stories for people asking me why you wanted to be in this country, why you come to United States from China. Like all the things of life, I need to have different solutions, different fake answers, like lie to people. And there are like so many moments during my puberty time and during the time I'm in closet. I was like, okay, I just give up. I just like tell people like whoever asks me about my story to choose. But in that time, I don't have the confidence or I don't have the feeling of security to do that. So pride for me is at the moment I feel I'm confident and comfortable enough to be who I am and feel secure, like 100% security of be who I am. So pride is kind of like internally power for me. And a pride parade for me is really a motivation and a celebration thing, like for my self identification, because I went to Silver Pride before I come out. So like those pride let me see people who just like me and people in different background be truly who they are, like enjoying their life under the sun. Those kind of power and those people I met like in real life really give me the motivation to be who I am. So that's what Pride Parade means for me. And also for the whole LGBTQ plus community, Pride Parade is also like a motivation and education time for the worldwide, because Pride Parade is the only time of the year in like specific cities you can be who you are. So it's kind of sad, even though like in the Pride Parade everybody is happy, but you can't see that everywhere. It's only in like hundreds of cities happening, and only people in those cities can be who they are, can wear whatever they want to in public in that specific day. So it's an education time for people whoever is not gay, whoever is not in the community, a time to learn more about this community and to push this community to other places to influence more people to come to support and give more people who's in the closet more power. And the goal for the whole LGBTQ community is we don't need Pride Parade anymore. We can be who we really are, like every day. So that's the goal for the Pride Parade. And thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Terry, for sharing with us. John, you have a few minutes to share with us what is Pride for you and how is it different than Pride Parade?
Yeah, I'm afraid to talk because I'm afraid the audio is gonna go bad again. But I hope everybody can hear me. So for me, pride means it's like a summary of everybody's answer. Pride for me means being able to be who I am because to understand that is growing up, I was always being told you're too effeminate, you are too much like a girl, as if that's a bad thing. You are not manly enough. You are not liking the correct activities. Like you should be liking sports because you're a man, and I don't. And so everything that I do that I feel like it's natural to me is being told that it is wrong and it is shameful. And so for me, when I discover that I can actually be who I am without having to hide who my real personality and identity is, that to me is pride. Being proudful and not being ashamed of who I am anymore, and being able to just be who I am rather than trying to be somebody that you think other people want you to be. Because that was my childhood. It's like trying to be somebody that people want me to be. And when it comes to Pride Parade, I know some people, I can see people see Pride Parade as a like party. A lot of people have that misconception because of media coverage, right? Back then, way back then, when there's 20, 30 years ago, whenever there's news coverage of anything gay, they show gay pride parade or partying, float, and all that. Now, all that is good. That's all part of celebration, but that's not what all LGBTQ plus people do every single day. So it's not a true reflection of our whole self. It's just one sliver of our celebration. So, but I also think that there is a place for it because to some people who attend Pride parades, that is the only day or the only weekend that they have that they feel okay to be who they are when they find their tribe, like what David was telling you. They have a safe space to be who they are. That's why Pride Parade is still crucial because for some people that is the only time they get to do that. Of course, we're striving to where we can just be who we are every single day, and then we don't need Pride Parade at that time, but we still have a long ways to go. So we still need to be able to express ourselves in events like Pride Parade, but also every single day, like what Harris, Terry, David mentioned earlier.
Thank you, John, for sharing. And yay, nothing crashed. We're still online. And a little bit for me, what pride is a bit of what every single one of you have shared, and is the ability to be myself, is being able to show everyone who I am, not having to hide under a mask, not having to change the pronoun of my significant other, not being afraid. That's what pride means to me. It's a safe space. It's being with my tribe. It's being accepted. And I think that's really important for everyone out there that's hearing and listening to us, that how important it is to have a safe community, a safe space for your friends, for your family members, for people that you don't know are in the closet. And it's much more than just a parade. It's who we are. Now, the next question I have is very important because people have asked and they're not sure, is why does NAAAP Pride exist? Why are we fighting so hard to have this program nationwide? Why do we feel the need to work together every single week and show up, even if it's just a few of us? David, would you like to answer this question?
Sure. On a personal level, for me, I still have memories of when I first moved into my current home here in Kansas. It was just 15 so years ago. Our neighbors, a group of neighbors actually came up to us as we were moving in and said, "We had a meeting and none of us here want you here. You're not welcome in our neighborhood." And that has stuck with me. You know, we have since made friends with our neighbors, but to have somebody feel like they have the right to come into your space and say that to you. And you also can feel that and sense that in the workplace and in many places that you go, whether it's restaurants, if I'm at the movies with my partner and we're sitting together, or maybe even holding hands, you get looks. So to me, that is one of the reasons that we have Pride, and especially NAAAP Pride, so that we can talk to our own community and be able to connect together, to discuss things like that. And again, going back to like creating safe spaces at work, do people, know what that means? We can help with that. But ultimately, there are many, LGBT organizations, and there are many Asian organizations. But for us that are kind of in both spaces, we kind of feel left out of both of those at times. That you go to an Asian group, but there's very little discussion about being LGBT, and a lot of times it's even frowned upon because of taboos within Asian culture. Or you go to an LGBT group, and there's not much discussion about being Asian, or if there is, sometimes it's in very negative terms. So for us, we felt like NAAAP Pride was a place where we can fill that gap and that need for those of us that exist in both of those spaces.
Thank you, David. Harris, how about you? Why do you think we need NAP Pride?
Yeah, so I think personally that Asian Americans are one of the most conservative minority groups that we have in America. And for me, especially, I know that for my parents, they came from a different country. And so they came here with already the whole risking their entire lives to just coming to a different place, to a different space, to a different way of thinking. And then when they had me, it was kind of like, they were asked the questions to themselves and probably and talking behind my back as well. They're saying, why can't he just be normal? We've done all of this to have such a perfect life, and we're trying to, fight for that. And why can't my son just be a little more normal? And I think that's why I need that pride, because if my parents think that way, then it means other parents think that way. And for me to be all of myself professionally, I need the support of my parents. If I need them for anything whatsoever, my parents are the ones that I need supporting me, the ones fighting for me. I can't have them think any other way. And so that's why I think it's important for us to keep that pride here and also be louder and prouder for it. Because if more people hear what we want to do with inclusion, I think more people I get that we're not just here as a side organization or somebody with an agenda of some sorts. So yeah, that's kind of what I have to say.
Thank you, Harris. And from my personal experience, I believe that we do need to be a bridge between our LGBTQ community, our members, and also our allies and their family members. Um, with the taboo that we have in our community being underrepresented both as LGBTQ and also as an Asian community, we're kind of the minority within the minority. And having that pride gave us the voice to be able to share our experiences, share our story, and also educate our people. Let other people know, let our family members know, like Harris, you're saying that, the quote unquote, why are you not normal? We're sharing that we are actually normal, just like everybody else. And I think this is very important for us to educate and help each other have a safe space and be able to coexist. Um, John, I would like to ask, what does it mean to be all inclusive in a chapter? NAP Kansas City is one of the longest chapter that has been LGBTQ friendly. So, from your experience, what does it mean to be an all-inclusive chapter?
Um, all-inclusive chapter means it is, especially for the LGBTQ plus community, it means that when you come to a NAP Kansas City event, you know that you will not be judged for being gay, bisexual, transgender, or queer. So that is what it means for our chapter to be all inclusive. And people might ask, why do you have to say that? And why do you have to make an effort to make it feel like it is all inclusive? And that's because part of a culturally, both in our Asian culture as well as just the history of um, the LGBTQ people are being treated in our own country, all those combined, we are still not quite there yet. So we need to make an effort to let them know that they are welcome, particularly in this case, the LGBTQ plus community. So in order to do that, we have in our chapter banners, a NAP Pride banner every time we have a NAP occasion. So anytime there's an event there, we are existing side by side the NAP banner as well as the NAP Pride banner. And to us, that is an indication that, hey, we are welcoming because we understand. I've been through that myself. Sometimes it's easier for your host to say, hey, you are welcome. Doesn't matter who you are, come on in, rather than you knocking on the door, say, hey, can I come because I'm gay? So it's a little bit more difficult for that. So what we want to be all inclusive means we want to put the recognition. It's almost like hanging a rainbow flag. We can do that. We also do that on our website. So if people want to browse and say, should I join this organization? And then they see the NAP Pride logos there, they see the mission is there, they know that they are included in this NAP family.
Thank you, John. Terry, for you, how do you think we could promote leadership within the LGBTQ community and also within the regular members?
For me, in our Cincinnati chapter, what we're doing is we try to get more opportunity to show the event have something related with LGBTQ issues. Like we set up the Pride Parade this year, and we also will have like an information session, as we always trying to bring up these issues and this kind of events. Our members and our leadership team will have more opportunity to host, to learn, to self-educate it, and also to have more interaction with LGBTQ community people. So in this way, they will be exposed to more and more rainbow community. So this is like a really good way for us to educate our members. Especially from last year, we participated in the Pride Parade with HRC. Our members, like those of, we have part of members, like they have never know like what is LGBTQ means. Like they feel empowered through this event, and through our like one of the panel earlier this year, some of our members gave us feedback that they are so excited and thrilled to know like we have people in LGBTQ communities and also Asian, and they give our event gives them inspiration about to do more work for this community. So I think through like your normal event and through your leadership team's involvement, it's really a good way to educate your members.
Thank you, Terry, for sharing with us. David, I'd like to ask you, what does it mean to be an ally? How can people be an ally for our community?
I think first off, having empathy and trying to see things from our point of view, our perspective, and that when we bring, an issue up, that there's a valid reason behind it, and to go to those events that are important to us. So if it's a Pride event or if there's an event at work that is an LGBT topic, to show up, to be part of the discussion, to be there as support in times that, may be rough for us. When I know for us where I work, when the Pulse shooting happened, our entire community came together at Hallmark, and the rest of the Hallmark community wrapped their arms around us and said that they were there for us, and just wanted them to know that they cared, and that meant a lot to us, to have that, because that hit everybody. And so I think that's the main thing, but also to speak out. When you hear something that's not right, when you hear somebody using, homophobic language, be the one that stands up, because a lot of times those that are in the LGBT community can be scared to do that, especially if they're closeted. And we need our allies to speak up for us and to be there, because we can't change things on our own. We need the voices of others, at work, in our communities, in government, in the voting booth. I think that's how you be an ally, is that you try to create a world that's better for everyone, not just for the LGBT community. Once you make the world better for them, you are making the world better for everybody. So to me, that should be the motivation.
Thank you, David, for sharing. And thank you, every single one of you, for sharing your experiences, your point of view, and how we could all grow as a community. And I would now leave this next part to Harris. He would be having Q&A with the attendees. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask it in the link in the chat area. And so there you go, Harris.
Yeah, thank you, Kim, for moderating that panel. So I am looking through the chat right now and looking through our emails and looking through our texts, so searching for any questions. If I currently don't have anybody having a question so far, so if anyone wants to submit one, or if anyone on our side of things has a question too that they like to ask, feel free to do so.
I have a question. This is John. I am curious, the viewers who are watching this, if those of you, what does it mean for you to be an ally for the LGBTQ plus community? Because I know we are talking most of the time, especially within the NAAAP Pride audience, we are talking to people who are not part of the LGBTQ plus community, because part of our mission is to educate, and so I'm wondering what that means to you, being an ally, is for you guys, those of you who are listening or tuning in right now. And as we're doing that, I know that there's a slight delay. When I ask that questions, there's probably like a 5 to 8 second delay. So we'll give them time to answer that. So maybe we can come back to that if you want to talk about something else.
Yeah. So one of the things that I did today was I talked to one of our sponsors, TJX, and the head of diversity and inclusion had said something along the lines of being an ally really means accepting that we are different like each other. I think being an ally isn't being the same or understanding where we come from because you also have similar experiences, but it's to feel like and to understand that we are all different in the same way. And to be an ally is really to see that point of view and to embrace it and throughout your entire kind of whole self and your whole life. So it looks like SpongeBob Chan has a comment on the YouTube chat. Says along the lines of how people on the internet use homophobic slurs a lot recently and start turning you know the identities into a meme. Does anyone on our side have any comments to that?
I don't know what that means. I don't know. Maybe I'm too old to know what the meme, what the gay meme is.
Yeah.
I just
I think they use it as a negative. Like if they want to say
oh,
something
that's
is
so
bad, they
gay.
say that's so gay.
Oh, I see, I see.
From The Hangover too, yeah.
You know,
Ah, yeah, and those are little things that some people don't even think about. They just said, no, I don't mean that as in homosexuals. I just mean that as being bad. It's like, hello, that's even worse, right? So
right?
there's a lot of stuff that people say, or even sometimes you might have fallen into the trap. But now that you have the awareness about your LGBTQ plus friends, colleagues, now you are more sensitive to it, and you are more empathetic to those comments that might be microaggression or just plain old bad. So it doesn't look like there's a lot of activities in there because some of them are probably watching it without keyboard, so maybe they don't have anything
Hmm.
to say. But we can move on.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, so I think we're gonna close the Q&A and we'll move on to our conclusion since we're also reaching our time limit. So I think Terry, you will be closing for us, or John?
Am I closing?
Can
uh,
I do a promotion for our upcoming event very quick?
yes.
Sure.
Let's see.
Our Cincinnati Pride will be June 22nd. So NAP Cincinnati and NAP Pride will lead the first ever Cincinnati Asian Pride. So for whoever is come to visit Cincinnati or you're already leaving Cincinnati, so please feel free to join us. Like everything will be covered by NAP Cincinnati, sponsored by Cincinnati Pride and our local business called Oriental Walk. We will also have Ohio Progressive Women Leadership Academy join us. So you can find the registration links through our Facebook and website. Look forward to seeing you all. Thank you.
Okay. And Boston Pride?
Yeah, so Boston Pride will happen this weekend on June 8th. We'll have a table with our Asian colleagues and friends, and we'll be celebrating with a get together with as a brunch. So if you're in the Boston area, feel free to reach out.
All right, and I heard that Miami's Pride is a little bit earlier, but there's another Pride event too, right? Kim?
Yes, we're going to have the first Wynwood Pride would be the 21st of June to the 23rd. And we will be there representing NAP Pride and NAP Miami as well. So look out for us with our t-shirts and our banner. And we will also be having our first NAP Pride, NAP Miami joint networking happy hour on June 20th in Coral Gables. It would be sponsored by Munar Law and Armonia Sanare. And there will be um, appetizers provided by our sponsors. So if you're in the area in Miami or Coral Gables, come over. It's June 20th at from 5 to 7:30.
All right. We also have a shameless plug in Kansas City. Is our convention that is coming up. So, David, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we have our big leadership convention, the annual convention presented by NAP, and the Kansas City chapter is very excited to be hosting it in Kansas City this year. Our theme is the unconventional leader, lead boldly. We look forward to having you here in Kansas City. Check out the website for all the details on our great speakers. We're really looking forward to this lineup. But just as it relates to NAP Pride, we just want to let people know that the gala is going to, part of the gala is going to be a celebration that we're coming up on the 1 year anniversary of NAP Pride. And we have decided that portions of the proceeds from that evening will go to support the NAP Pride program, but also to support the Kansas City Center for Inclusion. We not only wanted to bring money in to support ourselves, but we also wanted to help support the community at large. So if you're able to, please join us in Kansas City for a great time.
Right, and I think it's very crucial for us to be able to fund some of the stuff that we want to do because we have limited funding, but at the same time, we also have members who are from chapters that may not be actively participating in with the NAAAP Pride program yet. So that means if somebody comes up to us and say, our chapters do not have the money, how can we be of support? National is supporting, but we would like to be able to get sponsorship and to be able to do programs that would be great for the LGBTQ plus community in their local chapters. So we're looking for sponsors. So if you know of somebody who would be a good sponsor, a good match for us, definitely send them our way. And I also want to see if you guys are able to go to the website pride.naap.org and then in there go to the join, click on the join tab, and then put your name and your email and join our mailing list, and we can be in touch directly with you for programs like this. And one of the new, while you're there on the website, the new resources page that is Terry and Harris put together has a bunch of LGBTQ organizations, just some resources that you can go and utilize, including some of our logos here that you can download, and also regional organizations in the chapters that's part of NAAAP Pride. And while you're there, I know we're running out of time, but while you're there, also check out our podcast. Our podcast is the idea of Pride Talk Live is that we were kind of taking the entire group and do something live. But Pride Talk is a series of interviews with LGBTQ plus and our allies of the Asian American professional community. So
Hey, John, real quick.
Mhm.
I just wanted to say a quick thank you to those who are on the line that are allies. You may not realize it, but you are saving lives. You may not hear it, but believe me, if you are an ally to somebody, somewhere along the line, you have probably saved somebody's life, and we appreciate that, and we thank you.
Yeah, definitely. So, is there anything else that we want? Any parting words from everybody?
No, yeah, I just want to reiterate that we really do thank all of our allies and all of the people who are watching this stream, whether it is today, right now, or in the future. Being here today means that you chose to listen, you chose to be an ally, you chose to be part of our community, and we really do appreciate and thank you all.
Right, and hopefully we have future Pride Talk live coming. Sometime probably in September. So definitely come back. And this stream is going to be available online as well. So you can send the one that you receive in your email. That particular link, you can still come back to this page and then be able to rewatch the stream. So
Yes, and that one in September is going to be around because it's close to National Coming Out Day. We'll probably be talking about coming out and have coming out stories, but also how you can be supportive of those in the coming out process.
And subscribe to the YouTube channel because when we post our NAAAP Pride podcast, it actually gets posted there as well. Okay, thanks everybody so much. Really appreciate it. And thanks to all the NAAAP Pride leaders as well. So
Yeah.
Thank you.
have a good night, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a
Take
good
care.
night.
Good night.